Welcome to Backstage with Geoffrey Morrissey. I'm your host, Geoffrey Morrissey. I feel like I've been everywhere in the Royale, but not here and not with this company. I'm joined by Kevin Devine. Kevin, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. We're here on what feels like night 750 of Frank Turner's residency.
Have you been here any of the other nights?
I was here Saturday.
Okay, cool.
And I actually passed my senior year English class by writing a paper on Love, Iron Song.
Wow, so you get to see that record in full tonight. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I get to see it in full tonight, so I'm very excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I also get to see you open for Frank Turner, which is not too shabby.
Yeah, it's all right.
And then so another person that I actually interviewed here was Craig Finn, who's been your amazing guy, your most recent Devinyl Splits partner.
Yeah, yep.
And then so one of your Devinyl Splits that I love the most is REM. One because
with Jesse, yeah.
Well, I feel like REM doesn't get enough credit, let alone Imitation of Life is my favorite REM song ever.
Oh, that's cool. It's one of mine too. I think any REM kind of gets slept on after like 1995, and that song was like 2001. Yeah. And I think it's one of their best songs. I mean, it was definitely the best single they'd released in like 6 years. But it's a great song. And for me, they were the first band I ever saw that wasn't like a hardcore band. I went when I was 14 and saw them at Nassau Coliseum in New York. And they were a very formative. They, mixed mystery and melody and bits of punk and bits of new wave and bits of country, and that was all very formative stuff for me. So yeah, I love and his voice kind of like redefined what like a rock singing guy could sound like. There was vulnerability in his voice. It was wide open. I think he like opened a path for a lot of people to follow. So yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, no, totally agreed. I feel like they never get the credit, and you're right, especially after 2001.
Yeah.
Then you look at something like Man on the Moon, where it's either about Andy Kaufman or it's about the AIDS crisis, and either interpretation is, completely valid.
That's an all-time song for me. That's like that song is like, that is a song where I am never not in the mood to hear that song. If that comes on, I'm like, all right, let's just stop whatever we're doing and do that. Yeah, I love it. It's a perfect song.
There we go. We're in agreement on that one. And then another one.
One for one.
One for one. I think we're going to go 3 for 3. We'll see. Another Craig Finn, who you're obviously collaborating with. Absolutely amazing in his own right, the Hold Steady.
Oh, yeah.
And what is the key for you when you're looking at these Devinyl Splits for a successful collaboration? What do you think is going to work well?
Well, the whole point of that series for me was as somebody who is like, I got bits. So what I do is like, bits of folk, bits of punk, bits of indie rock, bits of, I guess, emo, bits of singer-songwriter stuff, bits of just rock music. I kind of don't fit in any one thing exactly. So I thought that it would be cool to curate a series where you could have people from like all over the spectrum in your mix. And that's really the only thing that I'm concerned with is if it's someone that I really like. If I think someone's really good, if I think they're telling the truth, if I think the music is like legit, a lot of times it's either people that I've like, in the first series we had Matthew Cause from Not a Surf. Matthew is somebody, Not a Surf is a band that I've looked up to. And then we had people like Tiger's Jaw, who I think were a band that listened to me at some point growing up. And so there's this wheel of influence, which I think is cool. But that's the only thing. The abiding principle is that they're like good songs and good people. And Craig excels in both categories there. And yeah, his song was one of those things where he sent me that song and I was like, we get to put this out? That's cool.
Yeah.
It's so good. The lyrics are so good. But yeah, that's it. I'm just trying to, and it doesn't matter stylistically to me. Like Meredith Graves, who's not like an MTV news personality, was in a band, I don't know if you can say this on the radio, but she was in like a hardcore band called Perfect Pussy. And they were like a hardcore band. Blast beats, screaming, writhing on the floor. And she was right next to Matthew doing like very sweet power pop stuff. Right next to like Mike Kinsella from American Football doing twinkly, finger picky. All it has to be is good. Like, doesn't matter what genre it is. I was really looking forward to trying to do one with from hip hop. And it didn't work for this one, but that may be something in the future. Like, I don't care what the style is as long as I like the people. So that's all we're trying to do with it.
Of course. Good people and good songs have been a check mark for all of them, in my opinion.
That's good.
The other one that I did want to check in about, I know this is someone who you're planning on doing a collaboration with, Scott Hutchinson of Frightened Rabbit.
Sure.
One of my favorite songwriters, one of the people who actually kind of helped get this show that I have off the ground through his generosity.
Wow.
Yeah, both him and Frank Turner both spoke to me when I was no one, which I will never, ever forget.
Right.
But I know that you were planning on releasing a split with him, so I just wanted to give you a space to maybe share a story about Scott or a song that is one of your favorites from his catalog.
Oh, I love my Backwards Walk.
Oh, God, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's like a perfect song. I mean, he's got no shortage of really good songs, but that's a perfect song. And I wouldn't pretend to lay claim to knowing Scott the best. We had been people that had mutual friends for as far back as like 2008. Mm-hmm. And we were people that would email and be in touch, but we never had met in person until like 2016 or something. But we were always in some kind of communication, respected each other's work, and then when we did meet, it was like fast old friends. It felt like very, and we would talk a lot, email, text, sometimes on the phone, talk a lot about, mostly email and text, and talk a lot about sort of mental health stuff, figuring out, navigating your way through trying to be a healthy adult in an environment and a business and a culture, meaning touring musician, that is not often the healthiest. It doesn't always invite the healthiest behaviors. Mm-hmm. So he and I would talk a lot about that stuff, and I did a few shows with Frightened Rabbit last year. And he was just like a gregarious, funny, sharp, smart, self-effacing, sweet. He was good, and he was really good. Yeah. And with the shows, I was supposed to go out with Modern Baseball. Okay. Modern Baseball canceled their tour at the last minute for mental health reasons. Mm-hmm. We were, which you understand, and of course, but we were kind of left in a spot where, just from a strict nuts and bolts business perspective, mm-hmm. we were supposed to go on a 6-week tour that had just gotten canceled, and like we kind of ate. It was tough. Ate a lot of money. you know?
I'm sure.
And so I reached out to people I was friends with that I saw had shows going on, and I was like, if you need anybody to do a support set at any of these shows, you let me know. And Scott right away was like, come play these shows with us.
Really?
With the split, somebody else that I was supposed to do, I'm going to do a split with later in the series, Pedal.
Oh, yeah.
They had to delay the release of that one because of something with their record, sort of last minute. And so we were in a position where we were like, we wanted to put together a digital split so people were not left wanting for too long. Mm-hmm. And so I reached out to Scott, and I reached out to Lauren from Worriers. And Scott wrote me back again within 5 minutes and was like, I'm very aware of the series. I love everything you're doing with it. I'd be honored to be part of it, whether it's just digital or not. And we were going back and forth about that up until, honestly, 2 days before he went missing.
Wow.
And so there is no song. It wasn't like he sent in a song and I'm sitting on some unreleased Scott Hutchinson. No, but it's another iteration of him just being generous and kind, because he both times stepped in instantly to be helpful in a situation where like some circumstances had kind of messed with my plan.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of person he was. So yeah.
And it's interesting that you say that, because I have a similar story where I was at a festival, never covered that festival before, didn't really know a ton of people, and I walked up to him, and I really hadn't listened to that much of Frightened Rabbit, and I said, I have this show, all my guests canceled on me today, do you want to come over and do a conversation? He was like, yeah, I'll do it.
Oh, and that's so great. And not surprising.
No, not at all.
No.
As Frank Turner said, people fumble over themselves in the music industry to say something kind about Scott Hutchinson, because that was the person he was.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And you felt that generosity of spirit and dark humor and stuff in his music, and I can certainly attest that in my experience of him as a person, it was all backed up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to move on to something a little bit more uplifting right now. Your 2 records that are out, Instigator and the acoustic version, We Are Who We've Always Been. When you were making these 2 records, what was sort of the most difficult, because you, for our listeners who don't know, record both acoustic and with a full band. What was the most difficult part of the transition? Because I know that you're used to writing songs both ways, but what about this material spoke to you in a way that said, people need to hear this both ways?
Well, I thought it was for me, it was Instigator got written intentionally as a kind of noisy power pop record, up more or less, step on a pedal in the chorus, kind of very indebted to like the stuff I grew up listening to in the 90s. And then, because of what happened with the Modern Baseball Tour, we only ended up doing one full band tour on that record, and it was very much a full band record. And so I ended up doing a lot of acoustic touring on a record that was written to be an electric album. So the We Are Who We've Always Been project kind of was born out of doing all these shows and trying to figure out how to translate those songs into a folk kind of presentation, whatever you want to call it, acoustic presentation. And then really liking some of the results in a way that was almost even more sometimes than their electric counterparts. But the difficult transition was definitely having to figure that out on the fly because it was not the initial plan.
Yeah.
But doing a Europe tour, a US tour where I was playing them acoustically kind of got them in shape. And then I came home and we just kind of recorded the acoustic version, and it was pretty much in place with some light movements here and there. But yeah. That was probably the toughest, just figuring it out as you were moving through.
Yeah. Oh, of course, of course. And then I want to talk about the title track, Instigator, some of my favorite lines ever written. I am what I am, and that surprises everyone, which I can relate to that line. What do you think is the most surprising part of your personality that sometimes people might look at you and not realize, you know, oh, Kevin does this, Kevin does that?
Oh, I don't know. I guess that usually when you write serious music, people don't necessarily imagine that you're going to be a goofy person. And I am for sure serious, and also I am for sure a goofball. And I think that could be like, I can be really absurd. And I think maybe people would not necessarily expect that. Yeah, I don't know. I guess it's hard to categorize yourself. I think that that's probably the thing I would think. If people who know me exclusively through my songs might think it's more serious or sad or something, and I'm those things plenty of the time because I'm a person. But I'm also like present and goofy and like the Mets, which is its own sad thing. But yeah, there's a lot of normalcy in there too.
I can attest. And then, so not to play into this, but I'm going to ask about a sadder song, No History. I know that for you and a lot of Americans, you know, September 11th was sort of a point where there is a pre-September 11th and a post-September 11th.
For sure.
And you certainly write about that in No History. Can you think of any other point in your life where there was sort of as significant or as defining a moment as that, where there's a pre and a post, and it's as sort of black and white as that?
Personally, my dad passed away when I was 23. My brother passed away when I was 18. Life was very much like one thing until that and another thing after, one thing between those and another thing after. I also have been sober for about 10 years, and I think life changed a lot with that decision, and that subsequent, not only decision makes it sound easier than it is, that shift. And my daughter was born 2 years and 2 months ago, and that's definitely very different. Life is very different with a child in ways that are like incalculably rewarding, and in ways that are like I'll go home tonight to my wife's family in Hingham.
Oh, you're kidding.
And I'll get up at 6:30 in the morning tomorrow with the baby, and I will be a mess because I've been on tour for 10 days and I haven't been up at 6. I've been up until near 6:30, but I haven't been up at 6:30 since I was at home.
Yeah.
So the shifts are kind of profound, but yeah, those events in different directions, up and down and middle, but yeah, for sure. Life was one way before and another way after.
Of course. And then, so the other question that I want to ask, you do a ton of these interviews as a journalist, I appreciate. What do you wish people asked you about more often? Because if I read another interview with you where it's, how did you get the inspiration for the Devinyl Splits, or who would be your dream collaborator? Don't Google it, it's Sinead O'Connor. I'm going to go crazy. I can only imagine what it's like for you.
No, those are, as long as someone's done some research, and I try to be, I was a journalism student. I have a degree in journalism from Fordham, and I try to be present for people when they interview me because I know how difficult it is when someone is not.
True.
So as long as someone does the research and doesn't ask, you know, it's nice to not get asked like, over and over again about how I met Jesse Lacey or Andy Hull. Those are people I love. I'll talk about them all you want, but that is like a lazy question to some extent because it's very well documented, and all you have to do, there's, you know, you could pick a platform, Twitter, YouTube, you could Google it, you could, anywhere you want, you could find out all that kind of stuff. But and also, I guess that when people just kind of, that's more like someone who I feel for, they're like not ready to be a journalist yet, but when someone's like, what are your influences?
Yep.
How old were you when you started playing music? You know, whatever. You're like, well, that's stuff you could just read Wikipedia for, you know. But anything that anyone does, any kind of probity and research, I mean, I like being asked about, I don't mind being asked about social justice stuff. I don't mind being asked about intricacies of musicianship stuff, like differences, different producers we've worked with, anything like that. I'll talk all day. But yeah, you did great.
Well, thank you. We have a lot of material for next time. You got a show to play. You can probably hear the screaming fans in the back there. So this will be my last question. Who are you listening to right now? Who has your ear?
Oh my God, this is always so bad because I'm so slow getting to everything. But I have an answer.
Good.
I've been listening a ton to the new Courtney Barnett record.
Oh my God, it's amazing, right?
I almost just cursed. She's really good. She's great. Lyrically, great. I don't think a lot of people are lyrically great. She's lyrically great. And the Front Bottoms, because I just toured with them all week, and their songs are like the only things that play in my head all the time because I learned 30 of them to play bass on the tour.
Oh, you played bass on the tour?
Yeah,
wow,
yeah.
okay.
I opened and played bass. I've known them for 6 years. I know all their music almost as well as my own, but this was like a more intense, this was like going to grad school for it. But yeah, I love them. I think that Brian's a special songwriter, but that Courtney Barnett record is, that's really good. That first song is really good. My God, yeah. So she's on my mind right now.
And the thing that I love the most about that is I feel like, especially 2018, people are just sort of like, they want to make their magnum opus, they want to say what they need to say, and she opens it with, I don't know anything.
No, and I
it's
think
great.
especially when people are looking to you to be someone who knows, that's the best answer you can have because it's the only honest one. No one knows anything. Everybody's just trying to figure it out, her included.
And if you want to figure it out, listen to Instigator or We Are Who We've Always Been by Kevin Devine. He's been my guest today. Kevin, thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for having me. Yeah.